Blessings Book 2, picking up again with the DK Book of Literature here. Having finished the individual works, there are also a few sociograms associated with some literary concepts or literary movements. Here we have from Friedrich Schiller's The Robbers, we have a little sociogram of the Sturm und Drang movement. So the subjects of Sturm und Drang works were typically sensational, reflecting the passions of their writers. Here you can see some 4 associated ideas. One is freedom. In Gotz von Berlichingen, 1773, Van Gogh work, an honorable noble who prizes his freedom is unable to adapt to a world in which cynical forces pursue power politics. I've not read that one, I must admit. Soldiers, this one's Jacob Michael Reinhold Lenz, tells the stories of the beautiful Marie, who becomes the plaything of chauvinist young noble officers, resulting in murder and suicide. Down here with the dagger, we've got desire and envy. Melancholic, violent twin murders his gentle brother over a woman he desires for himself in Die Zwillinge, the Twins, 1776, by Friedrich Maximilian Voltaire. Well, that sounds fun. I need to read more Sturm und Drang. And then here we go, Schiller in Oppression. In Friedrich Schiller's play Don Carlos, 1787, the main protagonist tries to free the oppressed people of Flanders. The work aimed to expose the horrors of the Inquisition. Okay. Now, the Weimar Classicism, sticking with German Lit, is associated with Goethe's Faust. It's got 3 3 elements here that you can see how they interrelate with each other. It's argued that Weimar Classicism argued that works of aesthetic harmony could be created if an author had the skill to keep these 3 key elements in balance. So we got Gehalt, Inhalt, and Gestalt. And don't do a Freudian reading of this ideogram. So let's start with Gestalt. That's the one you might have heard of if you're into psychology. There's a Gestalt psychology movement that's quite interesting. This says that the structure and shape of the work through which its principal ideas are expressed. Okay, and then so we'll contrast that with Gehalt, which is the living inspiration force within the mind of the artist or writer. And then we don't have an Exhalt, but we have an Inhalt. So the Inhalt is the main context or substance of the work. So that one's a bit obtuse for me. That diagram didn't give me much help with it either. So like, as you can see, the ones I know about, sometimes I'd like to see more. And then ones I don't know, I definitely need more. This essentially, I've never really seen this before. This is contrasting transcendentalism with dark romanticism. I'm not sure if they only are thinking of American dark romanticism. You know, you think Hawthorne, Poe, of course, The Raven. So transcendentalism, right? Emerson, Thoreau, this kind of stuff, is nature. You got the sunflower. Nature is a divine spiritual force meeting man and God. Humankind has a divine spark. Humans are innately good, and individuals are the best when self-reliant and independent. Whereas over here in dark romanticism, we have nature in a sinister spiritual force that reveals terrifying truths. Humankind is imperfect and inclined towards sin and self-destruction. And individuals fail when trying to change things for the better. They did have a Gothic house ideogram for one of the Gothic novels, but it wasn't very interesting, so I didn't show it to you. Okay, narration. So we'll conclude with the narration here because here I think you can see that this book is going to be useful for people just kind of getting new to learning about literature, some sort of simple ideas, and then getting into more complex ideas, like obviously a couple of the movements we just saw here. So this is pretty basic, simple breakdown from George Eliot's Middlemarch of a narrator's point of view, right? So you see the narrator can be, and then it's got a flow chart, right? It can be either a character within the story, which is first person, or outside the story, which is third person. And you can see the little break off up to the top there. It could also be you, the reader, in second person, quite rare. but interesting. If you can find those narratives, I always think they're fun. Um, and then the third person is broken down into objective, limited, and omniscient. So with no access to characters' thoughts, emotions, with access to thoughts, emotions, and with full access to the characters' interior lives. And sometimes they'll even pop in and out of their sort of viewpoint and things like that. So going from there now to a slightly more advanced, I see a lot of people talk about on BookTube. They're quite interested in certain literary critical ideas, even though they might not know it. And one is the unrelatable narrator, unreliable narrator, not unrelatable. That's a fun one too. But anyway, I have my own thoughts on that, and not 100% in agreement with this model either of what unreliable narrators are. I would tend to say that the more we know a narrator is unreliable, the more they are reliable. That is to say, we understand their lens. So just because a character is, let's say, got a certain neurodivergence, that's the color of their narration, just the way a child's narration or a retiring professor's narration are just part of their narrative character. Your real unreliable narrative is when you have no idea that they're having you on. Anyway, here you can see sort of overlapping Venn diagram here of 4 types, which is the mentally unstable or mad, the child, the lying or confused, and the concealed facts. So down in concealed facts, which would be what I would say is the pure form of this unreliable narrative, you've got Moonstone. You've also got Wuthering Heights, which overlaps with lying and confused. And you've also got Turn of the Screw, which overlaps with mentally unstable or mad. Mentally unstable or mad, you got Sound and Fury, American Psycho, One Flew Over the Cuckoo Nest. Also Tin Drum. That one's overlapping with the child's viewpoint. Child, you got Kill a Mockingbird, Adventures of Huck Finn. Also The Clockwork Orange, Catcher in the Rye, and Life of Pi, overlapping with the lying and confused. And then just pure lying and confused, you've got Blind Assassin, Midnight's Children, Tristram Shandy, Heart of Darkness, another sort of classic manifestation of that form. So there you have it, folks. A few different literary concepts and movements visualized through ideograms in this really excellent work by the DK imprint, which it didn't wow me as much as I wanted it to. There you have it, DK literature book. But still, did a good job. I got this from the library. There's the cover. And in case you're interested in the contents, you can pause your screen and see the heroes and legends, Renaissance to Enlightenment, Romanticism, and Rise of the Novel, depicting real life, breaking with tradition, post-war writing, and contemporary literature. I thank you for your kind attention.